everyone, and welcome to, can you believe it, episode 24 of the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. And I've actually resorted to herbal tea, and I did actually consider putting some brandy in it as well, because when we sort of go through what are we going to talk about, there are some amazing topics we could talk about. Procurement, yay! We could talk about risk management, yay! We could talk about the future of the world, yay! Or we could talk about Treasury Management. I will confess two things. I know nothing about Treasury Management. And on first impression, I thought, right, how are we going to keep people awake for 10 minutes? But the good news is Claire knows an awful lot about it. So
yeah,
we are.
I thought it was a good topic to discuss, because two clients have been talked to me recently about their focus on this area. So I thought, it's a topical point. Let's discuss it.
I'm going to take my medicine and I'm going to go with the flow. And look, in all seriousness, as we've talked about in the other coffee breaks, anything that we can do to improve the way our businesses work is a good thing. So look, let's just get the ball rolling. And Claire, why does having a group treasury function, which I only associate with like massive international companies, what's the benefit and why would we do it?
Yeah, so treasury management and having a group function isn't for massive international companies. Once you're a group of companies that are maybe 20 or so in size, all of which require some element of financing, you're probably at a size to consider the need for a group treasury function. And the reason is it's important is if you're just one single company, obviously you can manage your external lending and your working capital on your own. But as you grow into a group of companies over different geographical regions, you'll find that you'll have external lending in some companies and cash on hand in other companies. And if you all separately look to get your own external lending, then you find that as a group you're borrowing more, because and the interest you're earning on deposit in the companies that have cash is not as much as the interest you're paying in the companies that you're borrowing cash for. So the whole point of having a treasury function at a group level is to understand what are your cash and liquidity needs, what do you need to borrow, and how can I minimize the amount that I borrow externally.
Got it. All right. So look, in which case, look, you can tell we actually prepared for this one, even though we're on Teams again because diaries have got in the way. Let's just sort of, let's just go through what you described as the three really big things. So let's start with the big one: cash pooling. What is it? Go on.
So cash pooling is a way of pooling all your cash resources as a group. So rather than, let's say, me as a controller of one company having cash on hand and you as a controller of another company having no cash and having to borrow, we're going to pool the cash we've got as a group, and see how can we try to fund all our working capital needs with the cash we've got rather than borrowing. So pooling is a mechanism of it can either be virtual or actual pooling, where you're pulling cash from the bank account into sort of a sweep account, so you can consolidate your cash at any one point in time.
Makes sense. Okay, the other big one, transfer pricing. And in fact, probably worth explaining what transfer pricing even is and why it's a good thing. Go on. Yeah.
Yes. So transfer pricing is some rules set out by the Office for Economic Development, the OECD, and it's also enforced by local tax authorities. And transfer pricing is basically a set of rules that tax authorities enforce to make sure that when you're doing intercompany transactions, so let's say I loan you some money. If I loan you that money because you haven't got any and I've got some I'm not using, I should really be charging interest on that, and that should be in line with comparable rates of interest.
Right.
And if I don't do that, and that's one example, other examples are is I could sell services to you, I could sell goods to you. Any kind of intercompany trade should be done at arm's length. And if you don't do that, basically the tax authorities could come knocking on your door, accusing you of profit shifting. And let's say I put a sold something to you, I put a 5% markup on it, that might be deemed reasonable, depending on the business you're in. Maybe if I charged a 20% markup on it, they would accuse us of profit shifting. That seems not reasonable.
Got it. Okay.
Any other company in your sector wouldn't get a 20% profit margin on that. So that's why looking at transfer pricing rules are important, and having a transfer pricing policy. And it doesn't need to be complicated. All it means is basically write the policy down and check that however you're transacting with other companies, especially if they're cross-border into other tax jurisdictions, that you're doing so in a way that looks fair and at arm's length.
Makes sense. All right. We always seem to end up coming back to technology. So I can imagine that if you have established this, that actually keeping oversight and control is tricky. So what's the role of technology? Is there such a thing as sort of treasury management system or something like that?
Yes, yeah. So you can buy systems specifically for treasury management, or ERP systems that have a treasury management module within them, such as SAP. But a good treasury management system will enable you to get a snapshot of your cash on hand at any point in time, daily, and also whatever loans you have, and should assist with liquidity planning as well. So as a treasury function, you want to know what receipts you've got coming in what currency, what payments you've got going out, and what currencies, what's your foreign exchange exposure, and also if you've got third-party loans, what's the interest rate on them, what's your interest rate exposure. So a treasury management system can be implemented to basically give you all that information, with each of the companies feeding up their positions into that treasury management system, so you as a group can get a consolidated view of what's happening.
Got it. All right. And I suppose sort of the big question for me, if you think your company's grown to the size where this might be something you need to do about, what would be your first step to beginning to set up a group treasury function? Where would you get advice?
Yeah, so that there are consultancies like the one I work for, and also consultancies that are just specialized just in treasury management setup. So if you wasn't sure where to start, I'd perhaps speak to a consultant or a specialist who at least can give you a project plan and a way to set up the treasury function. It'll involve such things as creating policies and documents, recruiting a head of treasury. It will involve other things like it could involve looking at rationalizing the bank accounts that you have. Often when companies grow and acquire other companies, sooner or later they realize they've got like 20 different types of bank account, when really they only need a couple. So even though this sounds like this is a costly affair, really, if any consultant should be able to show you what the benefits case of doing it is. Because if you think, like at the moment, I just looked at a client, and not a massive company at all, but by setting up a treasury function and hoping to control this, I was looking to save like 1.3 million in interest payments alone a year. Never mind like the foreign exchange exposure and other elements they were looking to address.
Wow. Well, look, okay. Brilliant insights on a topic that I knew nothing about. Thankfully, you do. So look, Claire, thanks. So, and look, it's it's clear that, if you are of the scale where having a group treasury function is sensible, then like anything, it's a foundation for financial growth. And, by setting it up, what you've talked about, cash pooling, properly applying transfer pricing, and being able to manage it with the right use of technology, obviously there's clear benefits: reduced lending, reduced interest costs, and, as always, whether it's people, money, or time, a better distribution of resources, which is just makes sense. So look, there you have it. If you are of a size that you think that might be a benefit, you can come and talk to Claire. Definitely don't come and talk to me. Haven't got a clue. But I just hope, like, as we always do, it just gives a bit of insight into just another aspect of, where we're at. And I suppose in a future coffee break, then, maybe we've already touched on the interactions of treasury and procurement, but, maybe there's a bit more to explore in the future. But for now, thanks for joining us, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.